My name is Jeff Morgan. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'm going to be speaking on a case, CV18-1452, and to protect the name of the child that's involved, I will call this child Kevin. Now, this was in the interest of Kevin, and in the District Court of Parker County, Texas, the 415th Judicial District. This was a hearing on a motion to modify temporary orders, and Judge Graham Quisenberry is presiding over this. Now, the plaintiff here, the person who's filing the charge, is being represented by attorney Mr. Robert Thornton, who I affectionately called Scumbob, because when I saw what he did in the courts, I thought that that appropriately suited him. Scumbob Thornton. And then there's another attorney here, Zachary Q. Pettigrew, and he is the amicus attorney for Kevin. So this hearing took place on September 20th, 2019. There were witnesses there. Cynthia Onofree, I guess is her name, and then Ashley Womack. Ashley Womack is the mother of Kevin. And Ashley is going to be saying some pretty amazing things throughout her testimony. Some of these things I actually know firsthand whether she's speaking the truth or not, because at the first hearing I was there, and I was there at a different hearing, and I've spoken on a number of occasions with Kevin, and as she referenced in her testimony before the judge, yes, I have indeed videotaped Kevin, and I actually have more videotapes available that Kevin's father has told me not to release because he is trying to protect his son. However, I do have them. And the reason that I've taken these videos is because Judge Graham Quisenberry would not let Kevin speak. Kevin wanted to testify before the court or talk to the judge in his quarters. And Judge Graham Quisenberry refused to let him speak. And in fact, as well, Scumbob Thornton would not let him speak. Every time it was mentioned that he could testify for himself, Scumbob would object to it. Scumbob would not let Kevin speak. I read through the entire transcript and I took some notes. And again, this is in the interest of Kevin. And it's a hearing to modify temporary orders. And this is in front of Judge Graham Quisenberry. And again, once again, Scumbob Thornton. Scumbob is representing the mother. Now, what Scumbob is asking for is that Kevin's father, Mr. Wright, that Mr. Wright's visits with his son be supervised or denied. Supervised or denied. Mr. Wright was not at the hearing, and Graham Quisenberry asked, well, can we now go and acquire Mr. Wright? Somehow maybe we should pick him up and bring him into the court because Mr. Wright was not there. And during part of the transcripts, they asked, where is the child? Well, they said that, well, it was unknown, uncertain where the child was. Well, actually, they knew where the child was. The child was with his father. He wanted to be with his father, and that's where the child has been the entire time. In fact, what the child was saying, because again, I interviewed him at his request. It was his request that I come to his house to interview him because he was not given a voice. He has not been given a voice for over a year. Every time there is a trial, he has been silenced. And he was silenced in Graham Quisenberry's courtroom, and I know that because I saw it. I was there. I am a first-hand witness, and not just me, there was another person as well. And there's other testimony beside that. If there's any doubt, Graham Quisenberry silenced Kevin from speaking. So when the trial was done the first time, I went out to catch Kevin on tape for a few minutes, and about 30 seconds or so I was asking him some questions about what he wanted, and he wants to live with his dad. He wants to live with his dad. Now, in the state of Texas, when we determine the best interest of the child, whatever that means, the Texas Supreme Court says that the first criteria that we need to look at is, what is the desire of the child? The desire of the child was adamant. He wants to live with his dad. In fact, Kevin said that his mother and his stepfather had abused him. And based on some of the records that I saw, both medical records and police records, I would say that he had credible claims that he was abused by his mother and his stepfather. And again, these are medical records and they are police records, but somehow they want to not let this become public. They don't want Graham Quisenberry to know that they've been accused of abuse. They do not want Graham Quisenberry to know that the son is running away, does not want to live with the mother and the stepfather because of abuse. He calls it abuse. And again, the best interest of the child, according to Texas Supreme Court decision, factor number one is, where does the child want to live? Where does the child want to live? So what is interesting about this case is that the father says that the court has no jurisdiction. And I'm not really an expert at reading these orders, but from what I saw, I believe that the father is right. The case has been removed from different courts and really should not even be appearing before Judge Quisenberry. Judge Quisenberry refuses to look to see if that can be the case, however, so Judge Quisenberry may actually be taking authority over a case that he has no jurisdiction over. To me, that seems like that would be acting under the color of law and really perhaps doing something that might deprive Mr. Wright of his rights. And that is, by the way, a federal offense. But anyway, Mr. Wright has said on multiple occasions, and he showed me orders, that the case has been removed to a different court. In fact, it's with a federal court. And in order to make sure, it was removed to a second federal court. So it's actually now in 2 federal courts. It's not even something that Judge Quisenberry should be able to look at however he thinks that he can. So Scumbob here, Scumbob Thornton, once again, he is asking the father only have supervised visits or that his visits be denied entirely. Now, one of the things that Graham Quisenberry is looking for is evidence. What evidence do we have to put this order into place? Well, the interesting thing is there really was no evidence. There was testimony of some people, but no solid evidence. There were opinions of some people. There were evaluations. There were maybe their thoughts and opinions. But thoughts and opinions and perspectives and viewpoints are not evidence. They are just thoughts and opinions and perspectives and viewpoints. So I really did not see much evidence in this case whatsoever. The first witness that was called was Cynthia Onofre. I believe that's how you say her name, but I'll just call her Cynthia. Now, Cynthia is a juvenile probation officer for Parker County. She has 12 years of experience. I believe it's 8 years in Parker County and 4 years in Fort Hood. And when she was looking at the whole case, she said there are multiple orders. So there are multiple orders regarding Kevin, and she could not really tell which one was in effect. And there was dispute over which court had jurisdiction. And according to Mr. Wright, this court in Parker County did not have jurisdiction. In fact, according to Mr. Wright, not only did the court not have jurisdiction, but Ashley Womack, the mother, was violating her order by moving from either Lamar County or Collin County to Parker County, because the order did state that she was supposed to reside in Collin County or Lamar County. She was not supposed to move to Parker County or any other county unless Mr. Wright moved. Mr. Wright is still in Collin County, so it would appear just at first glance that Miss Womack, or Mrs. Womack, Ashley Womack, is actually violating the order that she's trying to have enforced somehow against Mr. Wright. So during the course of the questioning of Cynthia, Scumbob asked Cynthia regarding not just the orders, but whether Mr. Wright had enrolled his son in school. And you know, she did say that he was enrolled in a home school, but he had no proof. Now, once again, I've gone and I've talked with Kevin, and I've seen Mr. Wright. I've gone to the house where they have, where Kevin was staying, and I saw the report card. So I can verify it. In fact, I probably have a photograph of the report card, and I'm sure I could produce the entire report card should Judge Quisenberry want to see that actually Kevin was enrolled in school and is enrolled in a home school. I have seen the certificates, and I've even commented upon the grades. Now, I'm not sure if that video is out yet or not, because like I said, there are other videos that I am holding back. I'm hoping not to have to release, but I do have other videos in which Kevin will be given a voice, because he has been denied his voice by Judge Quisenberry and by Ashley Womack's attorney, Scumbob Thornton. The juvenile probation officer was asked if she found the father to be a threat to his son, Kevin, and the officer said no. Did Mr. Wright say anything inappropriate in front of the child, such as the court proceedings? Now, this is very interesting, because here Scumbob is talking about something inappropriate, and he's now saying that any mention of the court proceedings is inappropriate. Well, yes, of course they've talked about court proceedings, but it was Scumbob's commentary that said that these were inappropriate. Why does Scumbob get to make that decision? That's the question that I have. Why does Scumbob get to say that, well, this is appropriate, this is not appropriate, this is inappropriate? Talking about something that has been occupying Mr. Wright's life, because his wife has filed multiple litigation against him. How is that inappropriate? What should be inappropriate is the fact that she is filing this litigation against Mr. Wright. So Scumbob, maybe you ought to be asking the juvenile probation officer, has my client filed frivolous and needless litigation against Mr. Wright? Is that inappropriate? Of course it's inappropriate, but of course that way, if there's no litigation, you don't make any money. Isn't that correct, scumbag? Well, the next witness that was called up to the stand after Cynthia was Ashley Womack. Now remember, Ashley Womack is the person who's fighting for her son. She is the one who is talking about how the father has alienated the son from her. Well, the reality is I've talked directly with Kevin about this whole situation. I've said, has your father done this? Has your father done that? It's not been the father. Kevin will say, it is my mother. My mother has done this. In fact, what happened about a year or so ago, Kevin said that his mother came up with a number and said, do you think your father can pay this amount? Because she was trying to get money from Kevin's father. And that's when Kevin realized that she was suing his father, and he hated it, and he wanted nothing to do with it. That's at the time, that's when he said, I want nothing to do with this. And he was mad at her because she was suing his father. That is the reality. And by the way, I do have that on videotape as well. So there's some discussion about when Mr. Wright picks up Kevin. Is Mr. Wright able to pick up the child? Yes. And then this was a very interesting question, because during the normally scheduled visitation, Mr. Wright came to pick him up, and Miss Womack, who has stated that Mr. Wright is guilty of interference with custody or possession, a felony offense in 25.03 of the Texas Penal Code, which never gets enforced, by the way. But she's now claiming that she is not giving him permission to be with his son. His son who wants to live with the father, who has again claimed abuse by the mother and abuse by the stepfather. Stepfather Jimmy Womack has been accused of abuse by Kevin. And mother Ashley Womack has been accused of various things as well. So she did not want the father to pick up the son for the regularly scheduled visit. And what happened is at this time, evidently Mr. Wright picked up his son for the regularly scheduled visit and took him to the house. Anyway, she does talk about, the question is asked, has Mr. Wright filed cases in federal court? So she says countless times. Well, all Mr. Wright has been saying is, yes, I have filed a case in federal court, that my case has been removed to federal court. And Ashley Womack seems to be saying, well, yes, he has done that, but Ashley Womack perhaps does not want to recognize the jurisdiction of the case. That which she is accusing Mr. Wright of, she does not want to acknowledge herself. That perhaps Judge Quisenberry does have no jurisdiction over this case. And it would be nice if Judge Quisenberry would actually look and see whether he has jurisdiction or not, rather than just blowing it off. Judge Quisenberry, you owe it to actually find out whether you have jurisdiction or not. And she's trying to say that Mr. Wright is just disregarding all orders. Well, actually, Mr. Wright is not disregarding orders. He's saying that the only order that he should be obeying is a legitimate order, not an illegitimate order, such as what he alleges Miss Womack has. And I think that that would be something that the judge should first determine to find out whether he has jurisdiction or not. That just seems to be plain as day, common sense. I cannot make a decision over something that doesn't affect me, that I have no jurisdiction over, nor can this judge. So if this judge is actually making a rule in a ruling, and he has no jurisdiction, this judge may be committing an act of fraud. He should be, at that point, should be disciplined if he is actually enforcing an order or making an order in which he has no jurisdiction. And by the way, this is not just a minor thing, because this person's livelihood could depend upon the order. So it had better be legitimate, and if not, I would say that Judge Quisenberry would be guilty of a federal crime, and that he should be immediately reprimanded and perhaps even prosecuted as being a crooked judge for not respecting his authority. Well, one of these things that Ashley Womack alleges is that Mr. Wright has been restraining Kevin from coming with them during the pickup time, because Ashley and Jimmy come to the house to pick up Kevin, to take him back, and Kevin has made it very, very clear he does not want to live with his mother and stepfather. He does not want to live with a stepfather, who was going to be a better father, supposedly. And he also claims that the stepfather abuses him. Kevin does not want to go back with the abusive stepfather and the mother. And as a father, Mr. Wright would be well within his rights to say, I do not need to subject my son to abuse. And by the way, if Judge Quisenberry is ordering him to go back to an abusive relationship, once again, I question how Judge Quisenberry is acting in the best interest of the child, especially when the child does not want to live there, and his desire is very clear that he wants to live with his father. And if any type of harm were to come to Kevin, Judge Quisenberry should be held guilty as an accomplice to a crime. He needs to look, and by the way, the evidence has been presented to Judge Quisenberry. He has refused to look at the evidence to the best of my knowledge. But to go back to Miss Womack's claim that Mr. Wright was restraining Kevin from being with them, that is not true. I was there, I saw what happened. Mr. Wright was in a different room, and Kevin walked out to the car. I do not want to go with you. He did not want to subject himself to abuse once again. He told them very plainly. Now, I did have a video camera with me, and I got a couple of seconds of it. And by the way, I was also told that that might be something very good because there are criminal charges perhaps pending, and to actually have photographic evidence or video evidence that would exonerate an innocent man, I think that's a very good thing. And so I have no apologies for being there with my camera to videotape what actually took place. And if Miss Womack and Jimmy Womack would like to contest that, feel free to do so. But then at least call me in as a witness and at least let me present what took place. And do not have Scumbob silence me by saying everything that I'm saying is hearsay, like he did in Collin County. Scumbob, who is going to admit hearsay evidence and yet will reject and object to real evidence against his client. Miss Womack has been claiming that Mr. Wright has been brainwashing their son Kevin. So once again, I spoke with Kevin, and Mr. Wright was not in the room. I asked Kevin all sorts of questions. I tried to, any possible way, is there any possible way that Mr. Wright has been brainwashing Kevin? And what Kevin actually said is that no, it is the mother who's done it by herself. And actually things had been good until he found out, because she brought she brought a sheet of paper with money. Can your father pay this money? That's when he realized that she was suing his father, and that was the end of it. And he has not liked her since then. So Ashley, that is the reality. That's the truth. You know it. You're going to lie about it in court. I understand that. You're going to have your Scumbob attorney, try to obfuscate things. But that is the reality, and you know it. So again, Ashley has made some allegations, and that appears to be that she says that her son is not in school. And it's very interesting how when they talk about Kevin, for her, it's your son. You are the parent. And her attorney tries to make it sound as if, maybe there was an immaculate conception that took place when this child was born. There was only a mother and not a father. Sorry, but there was a mother and a father, and the father has rights, fundamental rights as well, that should not be denied, especially illegally, and especially by a judge who may not even have any jurisdiction over the case. Miss Womack is also upset that, that Mr. Wright is talking about the intimacies of the litigation. That is very, very inappropriate. And of course, that is not in the best interest of the child. Now here, once again, the best interest of the child comes up. This is strictly an opinion. She is suing Kevin's father, and because Kevin's father says something about that, that is not in the best interest of the child. Well, I wonder if Miss Womack would be able to stand before the judge, swear before the judge, and say, Mr. Judge, I am telling you that suing Mr. Wright is in the best interest of the child. I would love to hear her make that argument. It's not. And that's what Kevin has despised about his mother. The fact that she is suing his father. And he does not like the stepfather because of the abuse the stepfather has perpetrated upon him. And by the way, during the course of this trial, Ashley talked about videos that somebody made it. Jeff Morgan. Well, that's me. I'm Jeff Morgan. So I'd be very happy if Judge Quisenberry would like to have me come to the court. Please invite me. I would love to tell you what actually took place. And by the way, once again, I have more videos that I am holding back at this time, because I know what's taken place. And Ashley Womack appears to be lying to the judge. Now, I wonder if we could prove that Ashley Womack was lying, and perhaps that Scumbob Thornton actually knows it and is assisting her in that lying. If anything would happen to Ashley Womack, or if anything would happen to Scumbob, the attorney, I kind of doubt it. Again, now Scumbob is going to admit an MP3 file into evidence. Well, it's very interesting, because when I had a videotape of what took place in the courtroom, the first video that they talked about, the video that I posted online, that was hearsay, even though it happened the day before, even though it was direct conversation with Kevin. Somehow Scumbob thinks that that's hearsay. And yet he admits hearsay as if it's legitimate evidence right now. It's very interesting how this tends to work. Ashley Womack also started to speculate that Mr. Wright was a flight risk and would flee the country with Kevin. Very interesting. No facts, just pure speculation, but Scumbob, the attorney, gets it admitted as if it is fact in itself. So what Miss Womack is also saying is that that Kevin's behavior, because of Kevin's response to her and to her stepfather, who has abused him, that what they really need is some type of professional counseling. But they can't have the father around, because if the father were around, somehow the father would undo the effects of this professional counseling. Pure speculation. But of course, Miss Womack is a doctor. She's a therapist. She's going to tell the judge, as a doctor, what needs to be done. But she will also hide the fact, and actually she did admit the fact when she was in front of the judge the first time, that there were some things that were very questionable that took place. And Miss Womack, might there be a recording of that whole event? There may indeed be a recording of that whole event, that whole trial. There may be, there may not be, but I guess that's the dice that you have to choose to roll. She says that she does nothing to besmirch his dad. Not a bit of anything. This is an angel. Ashley Womack is an angel. Never speaks badly about the dad. Well, Kevin says otherwise. I will say that. Ashley says that, her dad, Kevin's dad, talks about certain things. Is it appropriate? Do you think it's appropriate? Who cares what she thinks? It really doesn't make a difference if she thinks it's appropriate or not. This is an opinion. Is a judge going to make a ruling on an opinion? Some people think that teaching children sex education in the 2nd grade is appropriate. Some people say the 6th grade. Some people say the 8th grade. What's appropriate? So the person who says the 8th grade would say that, well, the person who's educating their child in the 2nd grade about sex education, that's very, very, very inappropriate. That is just a decision that a parent gets to make. Nothing inappropriate, perhaps. Maybe it's actually more appropriate than the person who waits till 8th grade. But she also says that when Kevin is with his dad, that his dad poses a significant threat to his emotional and psychological well-being. Well, I have seen many pictures, and I know people that have been with them, and nobody would say this except for a mother who wants to get custody of the child. And by the way, part of the reason Ashley Womack wants custody is because she wants the child support. She knows that if she has the child, that the courts are going to make sure that she gets money along with that. And that's the reality, because that's actually what caused the estrangement, not alienation, the estrangement. Because she wanted money from the father, was going to take him to court. And that's what caused the estrangement between her and her son. And then we talk again about me videotaping on page 38 of the transcript. Evidently, she was very upset, or she noted that I was videotaping during one of the pickups. And actually, I was videotaping during one of the pickups. I did want to be there to see what happened, because I know that a person can lie in court. I know that perjury takes place. And I know that judges, in general, don't even care. Judges may know that perjury takes place, but it's no big deal. Who can do the best job committing perjury will win. And I wanted to make sure that there was photographic evidence, video evidence, so that she could not say that the father was withholding Kevin, but rather that Kevin walked up to the car and said, I don't want to go. I don't want to be here. I want to stay with my dad. And is that really so bad, that a son wants to be with his father and not having to, and not being with a stepfather, is that really that bad? That a judge would say, you know what, I'm sorry, young man, I'm going to force you to live with your stepfather, somebody who's abused you. I'm going to force you to live with your mother, who's going to be suing your father. Is that really in the best interest of the child? That's a good question that I would ask. And she mentioned that I had multiple videos also of the court proceeding and other things, and actually I do. And I actually have more than what she knows. And I could make more even yet. So I just want to put Ashley Womack at ease, at rest, that yes, she was partially true with that anyway, that I do have videos. I have not released them, but I could. But right now I won't. I'm hoping that Ashley will not continue in perjury and not continue in lying so that I don't have to release them. It would be much better if she would just drop this stuff and get herself right. And that if her husband would apologize for the abuse that took place. By the way, one of the videos that Ashley was very upset about, evidently, was the fact that I posted a body cam recording from a police officer who was actually, I would say that by the video cam itself and by what I heard on the camera, that the police officer was guilty of abuse. And I put that out there. You can see it, but I stand by what I say. I was not there to see all of the interactions, but Kevin is a 14-year-old boy. 14-year-old boy, and a police officer took him down. Gonna teach him a lesson. It was abusive. In my opinion, that police officer should be investigated for abuse. There was no threat to him. He lost his temper. He lost it. And again, the video is online. It's either on my YouTube channel or on my Facebook channel. So first off, I want to say, Ashley, thank you for mentioning me. I do appreciate it. Because I do have some, I think the camera does not lie in certain instances. She was also asked if Kevin wants to go see his father, to which she says he always wants to see his father. Is that so bad? A boy who wants to be with his father. It's very interesting because in many parts of this world, once a boy reaches a certain age, he starts to transition to his father. That's what happens in many cultures. Up to a certain age, the boy is much more with the mother, and at a certain age, he transfers over to the father to learn how to become a man from his father. What is so wrong with this? But we have an imposter stepfather who wants to take that place of the real father, and that is what is sickening. A stepfather who, again, has been accused of abusive behavior. Judge Quisenberry, you wanted to know if there were audio recordings. Well, maybe there are, maybe there aren't. And by the way, my argument has been this. We should not just have audio recordings, but we should have video recordings in the courtroom. Because as everybody knows, only a little bit of the communication is verbal. The vast majority of the communication is nonverbal. And to take a look at your facial expressions, to take a look at the threats that may be emanating from a person, I think it's very important to capture that. And if we had video recordings of every proceeding that took place in your courtroom, then perhaps we would have more of a chance of having honest hearings, filled with integrity, and that perhaps that if there were people like Ashley Womack who appear to be committing perjury on the stand, that it would be very easy to detect that. Not just with her voice, but also through her body language. In the end, what Ashley Womack wanted was this. She wanted to have contact between the son and the father cut off completely. Yes, sir. I think it would be helpful. Do you want that? I want that. Ashley Womack wants to cut off all communication between Kevin and his father. She wants the judge on hearsay, on her opinion, on her allegations, which I think I have plenty of video evidence that would prove her to be lying to the judge, wants the judge to sever that relationship. So on October the 3rd, this is Thursday, October the 3rd at 1:15 in Parker County, in Judicial Court 415, there will be another hearing based on the shenanigans and the chicanery and the bias of the judge that probably Mr. Wright will be thrown into jail and arrested for no reason. It is Kevin who does not want to live with her because she is suing his father and because, according to Kevin, the stepfather, retired police officer Jimmy Womack, has been abusing him. And once again, I took a look at the records, some of the police records and some of the medical records. I was not there to know for sure, but the records appear at the very least to suggest that there is some basis to the allegation that Kevin is making. And in any case, the judge should be sure that he is not sending the boy back with abusers, or he himself would be guilty of child abuse by association. And furthermore, if he really wants to talk about the best interest of the child, once again, according to the Texas Supreme Court, factor number one regarding the best interest of the child is to ask what his or her witnesses are. To ask what his or her wishes are. I'm not saying that I agree with that, but I'm saying that is what the Texas Supreme Court has said. Now, will Judge Graham Quisenberry actually ask the son to talk with him, to present himself before the court, or to take him in the chambers, and perhaps have a video recording of the conversation between Kevin and the judge, so that we can really see what's taking place, so that the judge can be held to a level of accountability as well. Will the judge listen to Kevin to discern his wishes, or will the judge force Kevin to go back with people that he does not want to live with? Right now, his mother, who has destroyed the relationship because she has been suing his father, and the stepfather, whom he accuses of abuse. Thank you.